Okay, and I can see everybody starting to join us. Hi, Mark. Thanks so much for doing this. How are you?
Oh, very well, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, good. Must be pretty early in the morning for you in the UK.
Half
Yeah?
six, so not too
Oh,
bad.
so thanks so much for doing this. This is fantastic. So welcome, everybody. This is our very last virtual meetup for 2021. My name is Danielle Stein-Fairhurst. I'm a financial modelling specialist, and I love bringing speakers to you that are of interest to Excel and in the financial modelling space. So if you're here, I assume that you have an interest in Excel and financial modelling. So if you're joining us live, do feel free to sort of jump in and say hi in the chat. You'll notice there's a Q&A, so if you have any questions as we go through, you can pop those in the Q&A and Mark will address those as we get to it. Or if you just want to kind of have a bit of a chat among yourselves, you can do that in the chat. So before we begin the session today, I'm just going to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I am today in Sydney, which are the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. So we are joined today by Excel specialist and Microsoft MVP Mark Proctor, who is joining us all the way from the UK, and he's going to talk to us today about Microsoft Excel Online. And we know that Excel and Microsoft are just changing all the time. So every time I look at Excel or Power BI or any of the Microsoft products, I just find that that something has changed. And I know that Microsoft is really committed to improving Excel Online particularly, and I know that there's been some really cool changes in recent times. So I guess the question that that Mark and I were wanting to address today was, is Excel Online good enough yet to use for financial modelling? Because financial modelers are probably one of the heaviest users of Excel, and in particular, sort of the things that we do are a little bit different to other uses of Excel. So yeah, Mark's going to sort of address that and perhaps a few other questions as we go through today. So I'll pass over to you, Mark.
Thank you very much. Let me just bring up my screen.
Right. Yes, we can see your screen.
You can see my screen. Switch it over.
Yeah, I think swap. Yeah, that's it.
Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Good. Right. So, Excel Online. How useful is it for financial modelling? But before we get there, just a bit about me. So I should say thank you to Danielle and the this financial modelling meetup group for having me. It's really good to be here. So I am a father of 3 girls, which at times feels like too many.
Never too many girls. Girls are fantastic.
Yeah, they definitely wear me out.
Yeah, I bet.
And I've got one wife who also at times wears me out, but it's probably the right number of wives to have. That was a joke, by the way, just in case anyone's worried. I'm a chartered accountant by trade, so I've done various financial models in my time, but I'm now a primarily reporting and automation consultant, having started consultancy just a few months ago. My main home is at exceloffthegrid.com, and I have a sporadically updated YouTube channel as well. I've got a couple of ebooks. If anyone wants to make use of those, there are some discount codes there if anyone is interested.
Yeah, I love your blog. It's fantastic, and your channel is great as well. So I'll send everybody a link to those resources after the session.
Perfect. As Danielle said, so in January at the start of this year, I became a Microsoft MVP.
Congratulations!
I know. It's one of those things that you get nominated, and then it's just like months after that until you hear anything. So I think that's about my 4th nomination, but eventually it came through, so that's nice.
It took me a couple of times as well. And hey, I saw that you're speaking at the Global Excel Summit as well.
I am, yes.
With me. And
I'm doing a session on Power Pivot.
Power Pivot, yeah. And I saw that you've got a discount code as well. I've got a discount code.
I do. It's Mark 10 if you want to.
No. You should use Danielle 10.
Mark 10 is definitely a superior code.
So either of those, Mark 10 or Danielle 10, will get you 10% off the Global Excel Summit. I think there's a bit of a competition going between speakers to see who can get the most people using their discount codes.
That is true, and I suspect it won't be me. Right, if anyone wants to contact me, they can get me at mark@exceloffthegrid.com. I also have my contact page on my website, or I'm available on LinkedIn. So any of those messages, I'm happy to hear from people. So the agenda that we're looking at over the next 40 minutes or so is the scope of Excel Online. What do we mean when we talk about Excel Online? The recent features, the glaring omissions. We'll then have a demo of some of those features. And then eventually we'll answer the question, is Excel good enough for financial modeling? So to start with, is Excel Online good enough? Well, in the past, that was, I think, a laughable question because the feature set just wasn't there. There was nothing that was particularly good. Whatever you came across, it never quite had the things that you needed. But in the last 9 months or so, having spent a lot more time in Excel Online, I would have to say that now I'm wondering whether it has actually crossed that line and the feature set is good enough for not just financial modeling, but for other aspects of Excel. Now, we know that Microsoft are trying to work on getting a comparable feature set. So whether it is desktop on a PC or a Mac, or whether it's online, we know they're working towards that. So at some point, we hope that actually this isn't a question that we even have to face, because Excel Online will be as good as, or even better because of what online means, than desktop Excel is today. So when we talk about the scope of Excel Online, what are we really talking about? And I think a lot of us tend to think about Excel Online as where we have a separate browser-based application, and we save our file on the cloud, possibly on OneDrive, and then through the browser, we then get to experience Excel in that way. So that's kind of what I think a lot of us think about as being Excel Online. And that bit is free. So if we open up a office.com account, we can get Excel Online for free. Then we tend to think that there is the desktop version. So we have files that are saved on our hard drive or on a server, and we get to use those files by using Excel on our desktop. Now, the truth is that when we think about Excel Online, we probably need to think broader than that, because when we have an Office 365 subscription, it means that we can use some of those online features in the desktop version of Excel. So we'll see that in a few moments in a demo that I'll show. So it's more about where our file is saved rather than about what version of Excel we've got, because there's features of Excel Online which we can use within the desktop application. So we've got kind of the free version, and we've got a paid version, which is our 365 subscription. When we talk about Excel Online, we also might think about what was the SharePoint server version. Now, I don't know quite where this is in terms of the Microsoft product stack at the moment, but there was definitely a 2013 SharePoint version of Excel, which enabled us to create data models and use Power View to create some dashboards. And Power View is now gone from Excel in effect. So I'm not talking about that SharePoint server piece at all. That's outside of the scope that we're looking at for this session. Now, Excel Online, or the browser version of Excel Online, has got a lot of potential and things that make it better than Excel Desktop. And that's not because the software is better, but because it's available online. So first of all, this is an opportunity for Microsoft to start all over again. So Excel came out, I think it was 1985. But now Microsoft have got the opportunity to kind of wipe the slate clean and start building Excel from the ground up. which means that what we should have at the end is a leaner piece of software with less bugs, and all of those legacy sections of Excel, such as Power View or other features that have now disappeared, they won't even be there, clogging up what is the existing application. So starting over again using modern design and programming principles. Excel Online is also good because it's designed with security in mind. Pretty much the entire Microsoft 365 infrastructure around around OneDrive and SharePoint and Teams and all of that, they've built so much of their business model around that security has to be front and center of all of that, because they are protecting millions, billions of files. And when we think about the desktop version of Excel, especially with macros and Excel 4 macros, so many viruses are now passed on through those kind of that desktop version, that legacy coding methodology within Excel. The fourth thing that makes Excel Online good just inherently is that it's always on. So it doesn't matter where you log in from, you can view your files and you can use them, which also means that if we were to use something like Power Automate, which you may have heard of, which is an online tool that helps us to automate processes. That means that we can set those processes to run at specific intervals, so at 3 o'clock in the morning, for example, and we don't need to be there to run them. We don't need to worry about whether our PC is on or not on. Those things should happen automatically because the file exists there in the cloud. And fourth, Excel Online is always up to date. So if there's a new function that comes out and it's in my version of Excel Online, unless Microsoft are in the process of rolling that feature out, it will also be on your version of Excel Online, which means everyone has a comparable base in terms of product. So backwards compatibility doesn't become a big issue that we have to concern ourselves with.
Yeah, that's always
Microsoft are quite good at telling us. Is there a question, Danielle?
No, I was just saying that the compatibility is always a big issue when you're dealing with different things. We do have a couple of questions, but I think we'll leave them to the end.
Okay. So the recent features that we've got, Microsoft are really good at telling us about recent features, the things that they've released. And it's interesting that as you look at this table, it might be a bit small on your screen, but just the volume of items in there tells us how much time and Microsoft are investing into getting this platform up to a really good standard. Yeah. But equally, as we look across this list, there's lots of things in there that make me think, how is it possible that was not in Excel Online before? So simple things like keyboard shortcuts were not available before 2019. Being able to create borders in different colors weren't available before 2019. Outlines and groups, these are core Excel things. They weren't even available before 2019. There's some things in there, 2020, rename a table, switching calculation modes. That is, that's almost, I think, a fundamental feature of Excel. And before 2020, it just wasn't there. And even in 2021, we get the ability to create links between workbooks, text to columns. That was in, I don't know when that came into Excel Desktop, but it's probably there from the start, who knows?
Been there forever.
Even that has only recently come in. And then there's regional date format settings as well, which I think before that, it was all US date formats. So these are some significant features that Microsoft are working through, but it's like, why, you can't believe that there was ever a version of Excel, even Excel Online, that didn't have these features in them. So, and hopefully we can see that as Microsoft go through, that they are building this up. And when I look at this list, what it actually makes me do is really appreciate how good Excel Desktop is, that all these things exist already and we can use them. It's just phenomenal that these things are not there already. So while Microsoft are good at telling us what features there are, they're not great at telling us what features there aren't. So if you like comparing Excel ribbons, so comparing the desktop version to the online version, then you're going to love the next 4 slides. So the main, in terms of the home menu, so the top section on each of these, we've got the desktop version and then the online version just below. In terms of the home ribbon, that is pretty much similar. There's the fill section, but most of the other things that are available on home we can do in terms of activities. There's some subtleties in there where some bits are missing, but on the whole, those features are there. On the Insert tab, we can see there's the comparison of the illustrations in web compared to and add-ons compared to desktop. It's not particularly comparable. Maps, charts, spark lines, not there. Headers, footers, symbols, all of that is not in Excel Online. We do have this forms feature, which is there, which is nice. But so far, I don't think any of those things are deal breakers for financial modeling. Next, we have the page layout. So you can see in Excel Online, we literally have just 4 buttons in the page layout tab. Themes and margins. Again, if you're going to print something, if you can use those color schemes, might be useful. All this other stuff about how it prints and whether how shapes are layered, whether they're sent backwards or forwards. Again, I don't think that's a big deal breaker for financial modeling. Now, formulas. Now, in also this section here on Excel Online, the function library, that has only recently been added, which is crazy, right? You could always insert formulas, but the ability to find them and use that function library, that is a new feature that has only come on recently. But we get here and we see this section here, this purple section, and we see named ranges are not currently in Excel Online. That's starting to become a bit of an issue for financial modeling, isn't it? We've got trace precedence, trace dependence, also becoming a bit of an issue. Error checking.
A deal breaker.
Circular references. If you have a circular reference in desktop, you get a message that pops up. You can ignore that message, but you at least get an error message. In Excel Online, there's currently nothing in there. It just accepts whatever you've entered in. So those sections there, I think, are a big issue in terms of financial modeling. As we look on the data tab, we've got all this stuff around kind of Power Query and connections. That's starting to come in, but isn't quite there yet. Workbook links is only there in Excel Online because there's no way to get there's no other way to get links between workbooks if that's your way of working. A lot of the other key tools are there: remove duplicates, data validation, and actually in online, the data validation tool gives us a search feature. So that is better than what we'll see in desktop at present. We've then got the data model isn't there, and then we come into some more financial modeling specialities. So what if analysis, goal seek, scenario manager, what else in that section? Data tables are not there. Forecast sheet isn't there. So we can group and ungroup, but the subtotal feature isn't there either. So again, quite a lot that's not there from a financial modeling perspective. Now we get onto the review tab. There's a few things. Thesaurus, I've never used Thesaurus in Excel. I don't even know what Insights and Translate do. I've never used those personally. But we have this protect worksheets and protect the workbook. Again, quite critical, I think, for a financial model to stop people changing formulas where they shouldn't. And then in Excel Online, there's this new feature called Show Changes, which I'll demonstrate in a few moments' time. View, again, probably not critical for financial modeling, but how we view that, whether it's normal page layout. We can't turn off the formula bar, and how we split windows and screens is different because in Excel Online, each browser window becomes a separate instance of that Excel. So you aren't able to split a screen in that way and put them side by side, or even hiding and unhiding doesn't make any sense from a workbook perspective. Then we have what is the developer tab, if you've got that turned on. So that's where we get our macros. None of that exists in Excel Online, and none of that will ever exist in Excel Online, but they have replaced that with Office scripts. So in terms of financial modeling, what do I think are the biggest issues? So I think they're named ranges, protection. I didn't mention at the time, but custom number formats, you can you can apply them, but at present you can't create them. So you know, I have a preference as to how numbers should be formatted. So we can't use that using the normal interface. We can't use any macros. All that formula auditing tools aren't there. The what if analysis, including solver and forecast. However, named ranges, protection, and custom number formats can all be applied using Office scripts, and we'll see this in a demo in a few moments' time. So even though those features don't exist on the user interface, we can still use them by using them with Office scripts. Now, formula auditing tools, I don't think there's anything at present to replace those. What if analysis, I mean, if you're thinking about goal seek, I suspect you could write an Office script that would work on a similar basis. Because what does goal seek do? I mean, it basically just tries a whole load of numbers. I think it probably goes really big, really small, and then just works into the middle until it finds a suitable result. So I think we could probably build something similar to that in Office scripts if we so needed to. So what I want to do now is to move on to show you a demo of some of the features that we do have. So there's collaboration and sharing features. There's a show changes feature, and there's also onto how we can use Office scripts to get around some of those weaknesses that we've just seen in terms of that feature set in Excel Online. But before we do that, are there any questions, Danielle?
Yeah, there are a couple. Yeah, you want to address those now? They're probably...
Yeah, let's go from now.
Yeah, sure. There's one from Henry asking about CPU and memory. If online is entirely on the server, resources for online versions. So
yeah, your that is entirely run online, which means that the speed of your workbook is entirely dependent on the speed of the server on which that file and that instance of the Excel application is working on. I think in general we can say that online is not currently as fast as desktop. There is some more rendering and other things that have to happen on the server side before it then gets served up to your browser. So yeah, all of that happens in Excel Online, and I think there are probably restrictions in terms of file size as well as to how much it can handle at present.
It's hard to tell, isn't it? Sometimes what the restrictions are until you actually try it, and then you're like, oh, I can't do that.
Yeah, and things are changing all of the time with this. Microsoft are rolling out so much stuff and changing things that even when you think you understand what something is, they'll suddenly bring in some new features. So it's difficult to know at the minute.
So a comment from Aidan, online seems to remove workbook specific quick access toolbar customizations. Have you had any experience with that?
Yeah, so anything around customizing the ribbon or the user interface isn't there at all. And in fact, all of the things, apart from I think the regional settings, the entire kind of file options section of Excel, so all of those advanced customizations are not currently there either. Now, whether they will get there, I imagine they will at some point, but they're probably quite low down on Microsoft's wish list because they are primarily trying to get to a suitable default comparison rather than anything that's highly customized at present. So I'd say that is anything around customizing the ribbon or the quick access toolbar isn't there at present.
Just a question from Sadin about what improvements or features in regards to financial modelling are Microsoft looking at making that I should keep my eye on. I'm not sure if you means online only or just in general. Any sort of...
I can't say specifically what's on Microsoft's roadmap. We know that they are focusing heavily on this. I think if I go back a few slides, they've got a few things that I know they're working on for 2021 still. So print preview, resizing the formula bar, rich text editing. So the ability to make within a cell, make some text bold or underlined while other text is normal text. So that's what's listed on their website at present. Specifically in terms of financial modeling, we know that they want to make online comparable with desktop. So over the next few years, there will be more and more features that are coming out which are specific to financial modeling. But because Microsoft are not focused just on the financial modeling community, it's possible they might spend a year trying to deliver Power Query for all the financial analysts, for all the data analysts, but then not deliver as many features for financial modelers. So even the timeline on when new financial modeling features that you would use come out is difficult to say, because you may have other features that you don't use which are key to other people. So I don't know what's coming out, but I know they've got a lot invested in it and are working quite heavily towards that.
And the last one for now is if Excel from Gaurav, if Excel is created on the desktop version using the features that aren't available in 365 and then saved onto 365, would those features be available when it's opened? I think it means like going from online to 365 back to desktop, backwards and forwards. Do you lose? I think what he means is, are you losing anything from going between them?
Yeah, so on this slide, when I'm talking about glaring omissions, I'm primarily thinking about what's there from a create and edit perspective. So there's things like slicers. If you have a pivot table that you can't currently create those in Excel Online. If you create them in Excel Desktop, they will render perfectly well within Excel Online, and you can use them in Excel Online, but you can't create them in Excel Online. Anything around name ranges, protection, custom number formats, all of that is still there within the file. Even if you have a macro that's in your workbook, if you open it in Excel Online, you can't run that macro, but it doesn't destroy that file. So it doesn't remove your macro. It just means that it won't run. So even if you made some changes in the online version and then save those, if you open up the version on the desktop, that macro would still be in that file.
And just another one from Fiona about linked workspaces in Excel Online. The linking works fine within online, doesn't, and it works really well with Teams.
Yes. So I'm not sure quite what they mean by linked workspaces, but I suppose in terms of we can now create an instance of Excel or two instances of Excel in online, and we can now copy or refer to cells in other workbooks, which we couldn't before. So that's fine in terms of linking. In terms of shared workspaces, we're going to see some of that in the demo in a few seconds about how multiple people can work on things at the same time. And the version of Excel Online that we see is also the same version, exactly the same version if we use a Excel file within Teams. So all Teams is doing is embedding that Excel Online within its own user interface.
Cool.
Right, so let's move on. Have a look at a demo. So collaboration and sharing, show changes, and then Office scripts to get around some of those issues that we have. So I decided the best way to work out whether, let me get rid of this. Not sure. The best way to work out whether Excel Online is good enough for financial modeling was to build a financial model. So I've built this entirely in Excel Online. I didn't pull any trickery by using it in desktop and then moving it across. So I have, I should say, I'm not, financial modeling is something that I've done from time to time. I know there are people on this call who are experts and specialists in this. So this just took me 90 minutes or so just to pull together. So I've got an assumptions tab, calculations, error checks, got my income statement, a balance sheet, and I've just got some reference in terms of styles. My balance sheet is a entirely balance to cash basis, which means that any changes that happen will just come through cash at bank. So I've not used any control accounts specifically, but everything's just balanced to cash.
Beautiful.
So there's a couple of things we just want to demonstrate. So first of all is around kind of sharing and collaboration. So I've got the same workbook open here on my desktop, and what you'll see is you'll see MP up here. So that's me, and that's because over here I'm on the assumptions tab, and even if I click around, move cells, you'll see that here I am over here. So you'll see what I've made. So I've got my desktop and online version open at the same time, so you can see me. We also have this guest contributor, which is Danielle. She's also in the workbook at this present time, and Danielle is going to make a change to this assumptions tab. And when she does that, she's going to tell us as soon as she's done it, so that we can then see how long it takes for those changes to render into this workbook.
All right, I'm going to change that one to 2000. There, I've just done it. Look at that. Look how quick that was.
There you go. So, you could probably hear the amount of time it took between Danielle's press
my keyboard.
Yes, and then how long that changed, which means that the ability for people to work on the same financial model at the same time. Now, you might think that's quite dangerous for two people to work on the same financial model at the same time, but it does mean that is a possibility, not just to view it, but also to change what assumptions there are. Now, because we don't have multiple scenarios, it does mean that the result that comes out from this is the result that everybody will see. But it renders quickly, even from Australia to the UK. You can see it was microseconds.
Undo. Look at that. Yeah, I've been using this a lot lately with clients, and we haven't. You can see people making changes, and we haven't run into any problems with people working on, making multiple changes, because you can see exactly what they're doing as they're doing it.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if there were a long lag on that, then I think there would be a bigger problem. But the speed is pretty fast, and even if I make a change in the desktop version, that also renders very quickly into this financial model. Now, another feature I want to show you is called Show Changes. Now, hypothetically, let's say Danielle was a rogue employee, and she decided that she wanted to destroy my financial model by going off and deleting one of my cells within my balance sheet, which she's going to go and do now.
Yeah. So
she's now disappeared from the screen, as you can see.
Yeah. Which one should I get rid of? The cat? Yeah. Look at all that cash. We don't need.
The banking cash lines.
I'm going to get rid of that cash line because I don't think we need it. There we go.
So within seconds, I could see that I've got 5 error checks. If I come across to my balance sheet, I can see I've got issues there. Now, what I can do is click on Show Changes.
Yes.
And it will show me, so Danielle is the guest user, it will show me every change that she has made in that workbook. And actually, as I scroll down, it will show me every change that I made in building this workbook. Which means that if you end up with a situation that your financial model, it doesn't look like, you've worked it out, you've got your EBITDA, and you think that's not the number we had yesterday, you can go back and find out why that has happened. What's the calculation that has changed? Now, what you can't do at present is to reinstate that calculation, but you can, by clicking around, you can see it will pinpoint to exactly which cells have been changed. And if you want to, you can then reinstate those calculations. So I think that's a really nice feature that helps us know what changes have been
But
made.
it doesn't save a version, does it? So I still save versions as much as I can. Like
So if you just press Control Z on that for a second, Danielle, just to undo that change. The next, so it doesn't show versions. However, if I come to my my folder here, if everything goes really badly and everything goes wrong, I can get a version history, which shows me every single. It's not. I don't know. I can't remember the time at which it makes those changes. But we had a change at 7:06, at 7:04, 6:15. So I've currently got 43 versions of this workbook that has been saved along the way, and what time it was saved at. Mm-hmm. So I can click on there and I can restore the file. I can open the file. I can delete that version.
Cool. I didn't know I could do that.
So, and that's because we've saved our file in Excel Online. So even if, even if something really bad happens, someone deletes sheets, someone makes a huge issue, you can, even if you don't want to restore, you can, save a new version and then restore it back, or open an instance of that file to make those changes. So you don't need to save versions, because all those changes are being listed there. Now, whether you can remember what version 38 is and version 42, you can probably only remember based on the time at which that save occurred. So yes, so we can definitely go back and use that to unwind any issues that we have. The next feature I want to demonstrate. Yes, the glaring omissions that we have. So, I said in Excel Online, there's no protection, there's no named ranges, there is no custom number formats, or at least there's no user interface for it. So what we can do instead at the minute is these features that are missing, a lot of them still exist in terms of the background. So the document object model as to how Excel is built up. So that exists, but the user interface doesn't, which means we can create Office scripts that will enable us to do these things. So if you have an E5 license for Excel for your 365 subscription, you should have this Automate tab in Excel Online. If you have an E5 license and you don't have that, it means your IT department have turned it off on purpose. So you might need to beg them to turn it back on. But within this Automate tab, we can record things that are similar to macros, but are specific to Excel Online. So if I click Record Actions, I can, for example, make this cell yellow. If I press Control Z, it'll undo that as if that action never happened. But for example, I could make that yellow. I could stop that recording, and it will then create a script for me, which is just how we create a yellow cell. So but if for people who have used macros before, what you see is that a lot of that document object library that we use to refer to items is very similar across with Excel Online. So there is some familiarity there. It's based on a JavaScript language. So that's quite a common language that has been around for a long time. But if we have features that aren't in the desktop, then how are we going to create them? Well, we have to kind of write the code ourselves. So you'll see here I've got quite a few Office scripts. Unfortunately, at the minute, there's no ability to sort or filter or to find. It's literally whatever was the last Office script you saved was the one that is at the top. I've fed that back to Microsoft, that that's an issue. Hopefully they are working on that at present, but I can create a new script. And I'm going to create a script now that enables me to create a custom number format. So if I were to go to Home and then down here, Number Formats, Custom, what you'll see, creating custom formats isn't currently supported in the web version, but your existing formats are still available. But if I wanted to create one, I could also let my cell equal my workbook. And then I want the get active cell. And then I can just go cell.set number format. Now, so if I wanted that as my number format, here we go. This is my preferred number format. So hash comma hash 0.00 hash comma in bracket. Hopefully that'll work. Let's create number format. And I'll just run that. Oh, I've got an active cell, but I haven't actually put a number in there. So if I put 1,000 in there, what you see is that's now in the number format that I just created. Let me just demonstrate that. So you can see that's now generated the number format I've just created. And also, if I put another cell up here, I can then use that number format. Select the cell. I can then use that number format that I have just created. So it's down here at the bottom, which means that even though it's not available even though it claims it's not available in Excel Online, we can create custom number formats. The next one, how about workbook protection? That's a big one, isn't it? Mm. So let's create a new script. I'll go to automate, new script.
So it's pretty much what we used to do in DBA before we had Power Query.
It's very similar, yes. So I can just go workbook, get protection, I think it is. Get protection, dot protect. Now protection has all those kind of options around whether you allow selection of cells. I'll ignore those and let's create a password. My password, ingenious. Actually, I don't want to do a workbook. I want to do let TS calls. Active worksheet. There we go. So I've got I've got a little icon down here, which indicates my income statement is already protected. I'll click on my balance sheet and I run that. That's run. So I've got a little icon on my balance sheet to indicate that there's no changes that can now be made. So if I try and type onto that, it won't let me. So protection we can get around. We can also unprotect. So I'll do it on the balance sheet as well. If I get my password wrong, it will give me an error to say that there are issues. I should be able to run that, and that's now removed the protection from my balance sheet.
Henry would like to know if we can create a button to run this script.
That's a good question. So about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Microsoft announced that there is now a button that is available, and they're now flighting that, so that's being rolled out to various users. And yesterday, some people in the MVP community were talking about the button and how it operates, and I was very jealous because I don't yet have the button. Have I got a button? It might be here live right now. It's not. That's disappointing. That would have been exciting.
Any day,
I got the button right here, right now. So yeah, it's coming. It's been announced. It is rolling out. They do a stage rollout so that if there are issues, they can then roll it back, make changes, and then start to roll it out again. So it's coming. And then you should be able to embed that on your worksheet to click a button, and it would run that script. And the last script I want to show you is just how we get around the named range issue. So by showing you these, if you do start to use Excel Online, hopefully you can come back to this video. You can pause it at this point and just copy the code that is that is there. But hopefully you can see that most of what I'm showing you here is not particularly complex. And just like VBA, it can become a lot more complex. So to add an item, so add a named item, and I want to call that my named range. And I'm going to do that on my active cell. So if I'm on my assumption sheet, for example, so in my drop-down list, I have nothing that's called my named range. So my assumptions list, I should, if I click that, it will run. I now have something that's called my named range, and I can use it. So I can now use that named range as if it were always in my workbook. So that means named ranges are there, and let me just delete that to show how we remove a named range. So go from scratch and get a named item. Get named. Let's see if I can prove. So when you have syntax errors in Office Scripts, one thing it does is it highlights it as if it's kind of a spell check, and it also gives you some suggestions. So it says, well, did you mean get named item? So I can click that, and then we'll update my syntax for me, which is fantastic. So as you go, you get like a code spell check, which helps with obviously writing good code the first time. So let me run that, and my named range should, oh, I've already got that created. Try and run that again. There we go, my named range has now disappeared. So that's just to demonstrate some of the omissions that we've got and how we can kind of get around those. And one of the questions I get asked a lot about Office Scripts is, will Excel Online, will Office Scripts replace macros? And I think that's the question that probably most people asked.
I'm surprised nobody's asked that yet, but I was about to.
No, well, as Danielle knows, I did a presentation that she's seen the video of, and the first thing I covered is the fact that Office Scripts will not replace VBA. And then I said it again, Office Scripts will not replace VBA. And in case anyone wasn't listening, Office Scripts will not replace VBA.
But
and
people
the first
still
question I
asked
got after
you.
that session was, will Office Scripts replace VBA?
Yes.
So this is the question that most people know. So in my opinion, Office Scripts will not replace VBA. And here's why. So we have, so when we think about VBA at the minute, it is an environment level and a micro level. So VBA, we can use that to control Excel, but we can also use VBA inside applications to control PowerPoint, to control Adobe Acrobat, to control Outlook. We can use Windows API codes to control parts of Windows. We can control text files and other things. So there's so much stuff that we can do with VBA. With Office Scripts, because it's primarily focused on security, it doesn't give you a huge amount of power to change a lot of things. And actually, it's only based on an Excel workbook. So even you can't run a script that applies to another workbook at present. However, we do have Power Automate, which is the low code, no code tool for automating processes. And that exists at that environment level because it has connectors into other external applications. And Excel is just another external application to Power Automate. So it means that we can use Power Automate as the framework by which we use Office Scripts and pass information to and from Excel back into Power Automate. Now, Power Automate at present is only cloud-based. Well, there's a version called Power Automate Desktop, which runs entirely differently. But Power Automate is only online, but that is the closest we have to replacing VBA. Now, because Power Automate and Office Scripts only work online, it's not whether Power Automate and Office Scripts replace VBA, but it's about how and if businesses start to move away from storing files locally on servers and hard drives and moving to online. So rather than will Office Scripts replace VBA, the question is, how fast will businesses move to an online only model for storing files? And that will over time make VBA become not obsolete, but less relevant to how businesses operate. So here's the question: is Excel Online good enough for the casual user? I think for the casual user, there's formulas, there's charts, there's pivot tables. We can create all of those. I think it's more than what they need. For the data analyst, there's tables and pivot tables in there. There's no Power Query, there's no Power Pivot. So I think we're still slightly short of what we need in terms of a feature set. For automation, well, we haven't got Power Query. That would give us a lot of automation benefits, but we have Office Scripts and we have Power Automate. So I think that's probably just met that minimum level. Our financial modeling. So what do I think? And it'd be useful if people want to drop some thoughts in the chat as well about what they think. I think it's just crept over that minimum level line. The formulas are there. A lot of the other features that you need, we can get around using Office Scripts. What it means is that because we don't have those formula auditing tools, it means that you do have to build a good financial model first time without circular references. So it's that error checking piece and guaranteeing that your financial model is robust, which would require testing in a different way. So I think it's probably just over that minimum level, but yeah, I'd be interested to see what other people think. So my last slide, is Excel Online good enough for financial modeling? I think that emoji still says it all. It's kind of, it's almost there. It's not quite. So yeah, that's it. Are there any other questions?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you, Mark. I must admit, I use it and then I often run into trouble, and then I'm like, okay, but it's easy enough. It's easy enough to be working in online and then to just open it up in the desktop and then to go back to share it. So I tend to sort of go backwards and forwards, and often it doesn't have what I wanted to.
And let's face it, we can build in desktop and save it in OneDrive or in Teams or on SharePoint, and we can share it so that other people can then use it, and they can then use their own desktop features, but it uses that cloud interface, which means that sharing can still happen. That show changes, even if you make a change on desktop, show changes will, if you then go into Excel Online, you can see all the changes that people have made on the desktop version. So you kind of get the best of both worlds at the moment, while
but you've got to keep it stored in that location. Yeah. And just on that, there was a question earlier about the time. So, when you were showing how it was giving you the time, and for you it was 7 a.m. when the changes were being made. So is that the server time or is it the local time? There was a question about that earlier.
That's a good question, which I don't know the answer to, because everyone who I've worked with has always been in the UK. So I don't know, but let's... I'm not sure.
Well, I think it was the local time for you. So
it's a local time for me. So therefore, I suspect it's. But whether that is based on, as I said, there's now regional date settings. Whether if I set my regional date,
but it said my changes were shown in your time zone. So is 6 p.m. here.
Again, let's try this live, shall we? If you can see my screen again. If I go File, Options. Does Australia just come up as Australia in these lists, or does it come up as something else?
English. Well, English and then Australia usually. English,
Australia. Yeah. Change, right. Then if I go to Review, Show Changes.
Does that say PM?
Can't make that any wider. 7:16. No, it appears to be local to me, but that might be because of where I'm based. It might be a UK server. possibly. So I'm not sure whether that's a good question.
I just made another change, so see if that. Yeah, it's still in your time zone.
Yeah, it's still in my time zone.
Cool.
So yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay, I've got lots of questions about financial modelling. That's more sort of general. Another question about pivot tables require a refresh to update in the desktop, and Google Sheets don't require a refresh. What about Excel Online?
I think Excel Online is the same. It does require a
just like
refresh.
Desktop Excel.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any way to select all cells with off-sheet formulas in one worksheet? That's a sort of general. If you wanted to select,
is there any way to
select all cells that have got an off-sheet formula? So being able to select the cells with a formula, which you would do with a go-to.
I suspect. I suspect not. So there is a. Yeah, even on the home menu, the go-to special isn't really as comparable. So even things like finding formulas, finding blanks, isn't as comparable as it is in standard Excel. So I'd say I wouldn't have thought so. It doesn't mean it's not coming. It's just not there at the minute.
Yeah. Another question about what alternatives, what other software or programs compare to Excel for financial modelling? That is a question I get asked all the time, and yeah, there are so ways. There's tons, but yeah, we really are just focusing on that today.
Being a Microsoft Excel MVP, my answer is, why would you use anything else?
Exactly. Yeah, you're asking the wrong people.
If online doesn't float your boat, just go to desktop. It's fine. And yeah, pretty much everyone's got a copy of Excel. If not, they can get a free version of Excel Online. You can share it with them. They can view it for free. So
Yep. Okay, I think that's it. We've got mostly sort of generic questions, which people will be able to, if they want to send Mark or I a message later, we can get back to you about that. But I'll send some of a link to Mark's blog and some of his other resources. So I'll send that out. I will send out a copy of the recording and anything else. And thank you, Gaurav. So thank you, everybody. Was there anything else you would like to mention, Mark, before we sign off for today? I
would say with all this stuff, there's lots of questions about, does this work? Does that work? Is that there? Well, I'd say just go and find out. It's, you might find a better way of doing something. You might find a better solution in Excel Online. Yeah, just
there's always
the time, find out.
Yeah, there's always tons of different ways of doing
exactly
the same thing, and I'm sure you'll find a better way. So keep trying them out. And this is our final one for this year. So I hope to see you guys all again in the new year, and have a wonderful Christmas. And bye for now.
Good. Thanks, everyone.